For a long time, I resented my hearing loss. Why did I have to be so different? I had no control over it, so I controlled everything else that I possibly could. Newsflash, we don't have control over anything. Once I learned to really accept this fact, things became so much easier.
Bring your imagination to life with inspiring stories of an incredible and very real world.
My name is Ashley Chanel Darrington. Yes, I was named after Coco Chanel. I'm sure that will give you some insight into the types of people my parents are. I'm originally from the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia, and upon graduating from the University of Georgia, I moved across the country to the city of Angels, where I lived for 5 years. I came to LA to pursue a career in the entertainment industry, me and the other million dreamers in Hollywood. I spent 4.5 years working in the industry and absolutely loved it. But let's back up a few steps before we address where I'm at now. I was born with a severe hearing loss in both ears. It wasn't until I was 2 years old that I was fitted for hearing aids. I guess my 2-year-old self knew that I would be a bulldog because I picked red hearing aids, and until very recently, I've always worn red hearing aids. In my younger years, I was never treated any differently from my hearing friends and family. As I got older, however, I started to become more aware of the fact that I was not like everyone else, and I absolutely hated how people who were different were treated. I refused to be another laughing stock, so I hid behind my hearing loss. I rarely acknowledged it and fought to excel in everything I did, academics, athletics, and so on. I graduated high school as a presidential athletic scholar, went to UGA scholarship, and graduated in 3.5 years summa cum laude. That's what I thought was expected of me to be accepted as a functioning member of society. While I fought to be as normal as possible in many ways, I've always fought against outward appearance stereotypes. Most people would never think that a goody two-shoe girl who cried when she got detention once in high school would today walk around sporting multiple tattoos and piercing and get a thrill from bungee jumping. Am I right? I fought these stereotypes because it was important for me to show that who we are on the outside had nothing to do with who we are on the inside. I wanted to identify with that in some way before I could completely reveal a big part of why I am the way that I am. All my life, I felt the need to prove to everyone else that I am not clueless just because I may not have caught every spoken word. It wasn't until I joined the USA Deaf Women's National Soccer Team when I realized I have nothing to prove to anyone. All of the girls on this team have incredible stories and have defied the odds of societal expectations. It had me thinking, as a society, how have we gotten to a point of being so quick to judge and assume? When did rules get set and why? Everyone had their own battle. I say all of this so you understand where I'm at today. After working for an incredible woman who accepted me for me, didn't pity me for my hearing loss, and supported my decision to try out for the team, I came to the conclusion that it was time for me to start doing the things that I wanted to do and not what the world expects me to do. So, I quit my 9-to-5 job and spent 6 months traveling off and on. This opportunity was life-changing. When one of your senses is hindered a bit, the others heighten. For me, I'm incredibly visual. I love studying people, their interactions, and culture. After my last trip in 2017, I realized that I still had so much left to explore in the world, which is what led me to working remotely, traveling full-time, and creating a passion project. The passion project goes something like this. We all have insecurities, and just because society has built stereotypes on our insecurities, that does not mean they should inhibit us from doing the things we want to do. This project was built from the idea that everyone has his or her insecurities, and instead of hiding behind them, we should embrace them and seek to fulfill our bucket list dream. You know that cliche, actions speak louder than words thing? For me, I've always wanted to travel the world, and my hearing loss is something I failed to embrace, so I'm combining the two. Over the next year or so, I'll be gallivanting around the world with some other digital nomads and pushing myself to learn more about the deaf culture in my own country and in the countries that I visit. Through this self-recognition and research, my hope is to inspire others to live out their full potential, create more awareness around the deaf and hard of hearing community, and learn a few travel tips. And man, I gotta tell you, I'm only 7 months into this journey and I've already learned so much. Number 1. When it comes to this adventure, my hearing loss has definitely had an impact on the overall experience. For instance, in Cambodia, I started to realize how my hearing loss is helping me adapt to life abroad. When I first arrived in Cambodia, it wasn't exactly the smoothest transition into a new travel work lifestyle that I was hoping for. I was battling a sickness off and on, stuffy nose, scratchy throat, and a stomach that spent more time gurgling than not. My luggage got lost on the way to Cambodia, but don't worry, after many phone calls and pacing in the heat and humidity, it finally arrived. Also, jet lag is real. The dust, pollution, and lack of food road rules have been quite the adjustment, but somehow through all of this, I managed to be fairly calm. For a long time, I resented my hearing loss. Why did I have to be so different? I had no control over it, so I controlled everything else that I possibly could. Newsflash, we don't have control over anything. Once I learned to really accept this fact, things became so much easier. When I look back on this week of unfortunate events, I remind myself that it's out of my control. It's easier to be relaxed than to be stressed. There have been moments where I'm out and about and I'll find myself jumping to conclusions before even observing the situation. I find myself having to reel my thoughts in. Long ago, I promised myself that I would not make assumptions about anyone or anything because I've always hated the looks I would get from others when I didn't understand something that was said or when my hearing aids were exposed. Like, they don't know me. How dare they judge me? And now I'm sticking my own foot in my mouth. But that's the thing about traveling and what I'm excited about over the next year. This reminder that I am in no place to make accusations. What is perceived one way in my culture is perceived completely differently in another. It's easy to be narrow-minded when we've only seen something done one way our entire life. But like how there are two sides to every story, there's always another way to look at something. Lesson number 2. My hearing loss has made me more present when traveling. Once I arrived in Bali, I started to become overwhelmed by my ever-growing list of things to do and see in Bali and its neighboring islands. I became frightened by my own lack of presentness and just living. My experience in Bali was starting to err more on the tourist, gotta-do-everything side. After accepting this realization, I slowed down a lot, and it was so refreshing just to having a bit more of a routine and letting things happen organically. Thanks to the lovely Bali Belly gracing me with its presence, I was pretty much holed up in my room for a few days. Initially, I was pretty bummed to have missed out on those days, but I started to think that maybe it happened for a reason. During my alone time, I had a lot to reflect and ponder. It had me thinking deeper about the concept of being present and my particular presentness or ability to be present. And you've guessed it, a lot of it circles back to my hearing loss. Being more present is a goal of mine over this next year of travel and adventure. Thanks to the lovely visit from Bali Belly, I had a good time to think about what it means to me, what specific things influence my ability to be fully present in the moment, as I mentioned. Naturally, I wrote a more in-depth blog post about it, and I challenge you to think about what it means to be present and what allows or disallows you to be in the now. When I'm in a situation where I'm interacting with people, I am most certainly present. If I want to be fully engaged in a conversation, I have to be completely in the moment in order to catch the detail. Otherwise, you will get a smile and a yes nod, which you will at times still get regardless of my deep focus. #deaf problems. And as I've mentioned previously, due to my hearing loss, I've learned to accept that I don't always have control over situations, so spontaneity is something I thrive on. The unknown is thrilling and in the moment, aka present. Now, while I say I love the unknown, I also love the known. I'm a walking oxymoron, and I attribute this to my hearing loss because in order to feel like a part of something, I've always felt like I had to be one step ahead. In other words, I like having a plan. I like knowing what's coming, so I can prepare for any, quote, difficult hearing situation that may come up. Also, to prepare any sort of conversation and prep work to show that I can participate with everyone else. That part of me likes control, will always be there, to some degree, affect my presentness, but my goal is to work on feeling less of a need to or plan, or at the very least make sure that I'm as present as I can be when executing my plan. Additionally, if there is a plan, my hope is to do a lot more for me and not for the purpose of feeling like I have to be on the same level as the person next to me, aka no pre-event social skills prep work. Lesson number 3. Traveling has helped me to be more confident with my hearing loss. Growing up, I hid behind my hearing loss because I used to have people get frustrated with me when I would say, "What?" repeatedly. If I mentioned that I had a hearing loss, I would have people slow down the rate at which they spoke to me and enunciate words extra carefully, as if I was not competent enough to understand what they were saying. Regardless, I decided that in my year of traveling, I would tackle my hearing loss head on. I mean, really, what did I have to lose? I had already experienced a pretty heart-wrenching moment in exposing my truth. Here, in traveling with a group, there is no hiding, just being vulnerable, open, and honest with yourself and others. It's a weird and comforting feeling. I had to basically expose myself 2 days into traveling when I was asked to present my passion project. My passion project is to learn about the deaf and hard of hearing cultures in different parts of the world. Talk about terrifying, but nobody even flinched. People were embracive and welcoming. As I've started to wear my hair up more, nobody looks at me in a funny way or talks to me as if I'm unintelligent. It's a new feeling, a newfound confidence, one that I'm incredibly grateful for. In a world where we're criticized for our looks, intelligence, socioeconomic status, and more, it's easy to lose yourself in sight of who you are. I had to tell you, it's the most refreshing feeling to not feel like I'm having to prove myself in one way or another. Here, we're not identified by our careers, looks, intelligence level, or income. Initially, as I'm one of the younger ones in this group of travel people, I was super intimidated by the others in the group. They're all super accomplished in more ways than one. We're all figuring something out, and most incredibly, we have something to learn from each other and something to offer each other. Having something to offer others was not something I ever really viewed myself as having. I'm still not entirely sure what I have to offer, but I do know these people tolerate me and are genuine towards me, so there must be something, right? In being more open about my hearing loss with those around me, I've become more aware of my strengths that are a result of it. My ability to read visual cues and my ability to communicate with the spoken language between parties is different, had put me at an advantage over my hearing peers while traveling in foreign countries. At moments, I almost feel more comfortable connecting with foreigners than I do with those who speak English. This is because we're on the same playing field of not being able to understand each other perfectly. Additionally, as I know the struggle of not understanding someone, I think I have a higher tolerance for mishaps that may happen due to a language barrier. I'm more patient than some around me when it comes to general cultural differences. I've always felt like an outcast, but when you're traveling and are immersed in someone else's world, those who are not always the outcast now become the outcast. I'm able to empathize with these people and hopefully guide them through the discomfort or unknown. In challenging myself to learn about the deaf or hard of hearing cultures in different parts of the world, I'm opening myself up to learning about countries from an angle many may never experience. It gives a more personal and intimate touch to the travel experience. Traveling challenges all of our five senses, but I think the most prominent is our sense of sight. I think it's important to reiterate that this is something all of us hearing, deaf, or hard of hearing need to accept and realize as something we have in common, and in that is something we need to share with each other. Daily, I'm immersed in a new setting where I have to be visually aware of my surroundings me, the people, the interaction, the street signs, etc., all of which can challenge your way of thinking, learning, and communicating. Traveling has the ability to teach you about yourself. You become more visually aware of your habits by immersing yourself in another culture and by living with different people. You learn about the things that you could change about yourself and how you have the ability to challenge and be challenged by those around you. The short summary of all of this is that I'm realizing it's okay to be vulnerable, to be an open book. It's okay to be scared, and you'll realize that in being unplugged, the ones who are truly there for you will come to the surface. Those that do not are not worth it. Kind of an unfortunate feeling to come to terms with, but also the best feeling, if that's even possible. Freeing is the word I should use. The experiences I've encountered in traveling have shown me how much I stayed in my shell back home. I'm becoming way more prideful of my hearing loss and my unique gift. My hope is that maybe this will inspire you to be more vocal and truthful to yourself and those around you. I'd love for you to join me in this journey. I want to hear from you about embracing the unknown and fulfilling your desires. How can we help each other? All of us travelers need to support each other.
Thank you for joining us on another audio adventure right here at Wandertale, the travel podcast community. Subscribe to our channel to stay tuned for more travel stories from around the world and share tales with the open-minded, the brave, and the curious.